Welcome back to another episode of OpenRCT2 tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you my top 6 pro tips for how you can elevate and expand your gameplay in OpenRCT2. In fact, the first 3 tips don't even require OpenRCT2, you can just use them in the regular game as well. But to get started, for our first tip, we have an easy one. It's adding balloon stalls at your exits. Now this is a really easy way to make some money. You just put the balloon stall near the exit, so the guests will have to walk right past it. It doesn't matter if there's a no entry sign along the exit path, because guests are never going to say, oh, I can't find balloon stall 1. They never really go searching for these stalls. So the guests will walk right into it, and you'll make a bunch of money pretty easily. And the good thing about balloons is guests will inevitably let go of them, so you can continue making money pretty much forever. So here you can see, just with a simple balloon stall with this ride, we can easily make $300 an hour. If you want to up the price, you can make even more. Really easy. For number 2, we have no entry signs at our exits. Now this isn't what you think. Here you can see my guests are actually sometimes walking into the exit building, so they will walk into it and then turn around, so I don't really want that to happen. So if I can just put a no entry sign right up against the exit like this, and say no entry, and that's going to solve the problem. If you have OpenRCT2, you can open the tile inspector and select the banner and actually make it invisible if you don't want to look at it. But now my problem is solved, and the pathfinding is corrected with the guests, and they aren't going to walk into that building. Next, we have secret block breaks. Now I always like to operate my coasters in continuous circuit block section mode, and this is to avoid the dreaded crash when there is an inevitable brakes failure that you have in continuous circuit mode. So to avoid this, I keep my coasters in continuous circuit block section mode, and we can see here we have 3 block sections which will allow for 2 trains. The only problem with 2 train operation is that it's a little bit slow for this ride, so the train gets stuck at the lift hill waiting for the other train to get through the entire brake run and over that last block break before the station, so it just causes for long queues on this particular coaster. So one way I can avoid that is to actually add a block break here, and with OpenRCT2 you can actually use the speedy block brakes and have it set to 27 miles per hour, and that should alleviate some of the issue here, and we can now operate with 3 trains. But the only problem is it's still going to get stuck on the lift hill waiting for these trains to pass over that new block break I created. So it just adds a little bit of time but doesn't help by much. Now if I close the ride, we can actually make sure that that final block break I added actually works and stops the train so there's no crashes. And there we go, it works. So now we need to alleviate the initial problem by adding a secret block break right here. So if I delete this track piece and add it back with the chain lift turned on, it will create a block break. So basically this works by a gentle slope to flat piece. So it wouldn't work here because that's not gentle to flat. It's going the opposite way. So basically we need a piece like this, just like the top of the lift hill. That creates a block zone in the game. So now that we've created that block break, we have 5 block sections. We have basically 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5 different block breaks on this ride. And so as the train traverses, it will allow for continuous operation of these vehicles. Vehicle 1 is traversing the course here, the first train, and it's allowing the second train to go up the lift hill. And then now as the first train crosses our newly created block break right here, it will open the block break at the top of the lift hill. So now the train can pass over and continue with 3 train operation. Now, you want to make sure that this secret block break is at the high point, so none of the track afterwards is any higher than that. We want to make sure that train, if it were ever to get stopped at that new block break, it will be able to traverse the course. One way to check is to increase the number of trains. So with 4 trains, we can quickly see the train is stopped there at the block break, that new 4th train, and now we can see if it will finally make it back to the station from a complete stop. So that's just an easy way to test that this works. And then you can always close the ride and set it back to 3 trains. So now that we can see that the 4th train will make it back to the station, our block breaks all work, so we can set it back to 3 trains. Now if you want to know more about how secret block breaks work, or how you can apply them to a triple launch coaster or coasters with backwards sections, you can check out my video, Triple Launch Coasters with Working Block Breaks, and I delve into way more detail about how this works with the game and how you can apply it to many different rides. Now for my next tip, this actually does require OpenRCT2, but it involves placing your entrance and exit buildings to help save space. So I'm going to move this top spin right here because I want to save as much space as possible. Now we're going to end up using the tile inspector to move the entrance and exit buildings. So I'm going to select the entrance building here, and we select it and press the copy button, and then I'm going to delete it and then place it right here and hit paste and then rotate it appropriately, and then make sure that it is below the track and hit make usable. It has to be below the track in the tile inspector order, and always hit make usable. And then I'll do the same with the exit building. We are going to select it, copy it, delete it, and then I'm going to place it right here, and then I will paste it and make sure it is moved below the track and rotate it, and then hit make usable. And then now I can open the path and we can make sure that the exit is connected, and then we will rebuild the queue line here for our new entrance building, but it just saved me an extra tile here, so I have a little bit more room. And then we can go into the paint here and change the entrance and exit building to the no entrance so they are invisible. If you don't know how to do that, go to your object selection, hit the advanced button on the right, and then go to the second tab here and make sure no entrance is selected. And that will provide you with that option. But basically now we have a much more neater little ride here. The entrance and exit buildings work just like they're supposed to, but it just saves some space and doesn't have those ugly buildings just sitting around. And then you can always do my tip number 2 and put that no entry sign there and make it invisible. But this trick works really well for the Big Dipper here at Bumblebee Beach. We could move the entrance here, and then all we need to do is use the tile inspector, and then we just rotate it once, and then we can build a new queue. But it's a nice way to use that little sliver of space we have next to the park boundary. So it's a great space-saving technique. The only thing to watch out for is if you are to edit the ride in any way after you've moved the entrance and exit building using the tile inspector, they will disappear when you start construction, and you'll have to replace them, open the tile inspector back up, rotate them, or whatever you've done to them, and then reconnect the queue and exit paths. So just be aware. One other thing to take note of is placing the entrance right next to a wall like so. You can see the peeps kind of walk through it a little bit, so I always recommend placing the entrance one tile away from a wall. Now for my 5th tip, we have faster dispatch. Here we can see the train crawling out of the station at the normal 4 miles per hour, and then the chain lift is faster, so it's going to jolt a little bit there. And I just want something a little bit faster and more realistic. So if we close the ride, we do need to turn on the cheats of show all operating modes and unlock operating limits. And then we can change the ride to powered launch block section mode. And then we can set the launch speed to something like 6 miles per hour. And then when we operate it, the train is going to leave the station at a more robust pace. It looks a little bit more realistic, and then the chain lift speed kind of matches up with it a little bit better. And then if you really wanted, you could actually change this to even 9 miles per hour if you wanted even faster dispatch times. So it's just a way to help increase your capacity and keep the ride moving. Again, here we can see the ride just crawling out of the station. Train's moving pretty slowly to this block break, so if we just increase it to 6 miles per hour, we get a much faster dispatch with the next train, and to me it just looks more realistic and it just flows better. Speaking of realism, for my 6th and final tip, we have short stations. So here we can see the train is going to enter the station and then immediately slow to 4 miles per hour and just crawl into the station, which just doesn't seem very realistic to me. So we can close the ride. We need to turn on the cheat of disable vehicle limits, and then we can actually reconstruct the station and only keep the first tile of the station and delete everything else. And let's put some nice gradual brakes, 18, 13, and then 9 miles per hour. And then we have to rebuild the entrance and exit, and then using the tile inspector, I will rotate them appropriately. This harkens back to my tip number 4 about using the tile inspector to place your entrance and exit buildings so that they save some space. And then we just need to make sure that the exit and entrance queues are connected. Now I'm going to make the entrance building invisible as we wait for the train to make its circuit, and we will see as it comes back into the station, it should have a nice gradual break into the station tile we have there. So that looks much more realistic. Let's watch it again here, and it's going to come in nice and gradual into the station, nice and safely for our guests. Now for dual load and unload stations, this works even better. You can actually get rid of that track between the two and shrink the station by 1 tile, so it works really nicely here. So if I wanted, I could actually make the station building 1 tile shorter, so I could delete all this scenery and rebuild it if I wanted to. Not quite as massive of a building. And then for transport rides, this trick also works. So here the train's coming in at a little bit faster pace and not slowing down till the very end. It just helps if you want your rides to be a little bit more sprightly. Now that's all the tips I have for today. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe, because next time I'm going to show you how to build this paratrooper flat ride. So stay tuned for more.